The grand chandelier sparkled with a million tiny lights, casting a soft glow over the elegantly dressed crowd. Laughter and the clinking of champagne flutes filled the air at the annual charity gala hosted in one of the most exclusive venues in the city. Clara, a striking redhead dressed in a simple yet elegant black gown that highlighted her natural beauty, felt slightly out of place among the swirling mass of silk and jewels. She had never been one to bask in glamour, preferring instead the quiet strength of her independence. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As she navigated through the crowd, Clara maintained a guarded demeanor, observing the extravagant lifestyles around her. The attendees, bustling with energy and ambition, were a contrast to her own life, a life spent balancing two jobs to support her passion for art. She had come to this gala with a single goal: to network and open doors for future opportunities. But as she scanned the room, her attention was captured by a figure standing apart from the rest. Luca Moretti, the notorious mafia boss, exuded an aura of power that was both enticing and intimidating. Tall and imposing, he held himself with an air of confidence that seemed to draw people in while simultaneously pushing them away. His dark hair, slicked back, accentuated his chiseled features, and his piercing gaze swept across the room, pausing briefly on Clara. In that moment, a shiver ran down her spine. It wasn't just his striking looks, it was the sense of danger that lingered around him, a subtle reminder that he wasn't just a man in a tailored suit. He was a force to be reckoned with. Clara's heart raced with a strange mix of fear and curiosity. There was an undeniable magnetism about him, a raw energy that made her feel both alive and vulnerable. Though she prided herself on her resilience, the way he looked at her made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. She could sense the eyes of the crowd flitting toward them, whispering secrets and casting judgments, but she was too intrigued to care. As if sensing her interest, Luca's lips curled into a slight smile. It was not the kind born of warmth, rather it seemed to promise something dark and thrilling. The voices around her faded as she found herself drawn toward him, her independent spirit momentarily eclipsed by an overwhelming urge to know more about the man who commanded such attention. Enjoying the evening? His voice was smooth, laced with an unmistakable Italian accent that sent another shiver through her. Clara caught her breath, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "Actually, I was just about to head out," she replied, attempting to sound casual. The lie slipped from her lips, and she chastised herself for it. But the truth was, she had never quite known how to handle encounters with men like him. Dominant, enigmatic, and undoubtedly dangerous. Leaving so soon? Luca stepped closer, his presence entirely consuming the space around them. She could smell the subtle scent of his cologne, a mix of sandalwood and something more primal that seemed to awaken every instinct within her. The night is still young. Why not let it surprise you? Clara hesitated, her mind racing with thoughts of escaping this world before it entangled her further. But the way his eyes held hers made her reconsider. "What could possibly surprise me here?" she challenged, her voice steady, masking her inner turmoil. The corner of his mouth lifted in amusement. "You might be surprised by how unpredictable life can be, especially when you least expect it." The implication hung heavy between them, charged with mystery and unspoken promises. Clara felt her resolve wavering, caught in a web of intrigue and allure as Luca continued to hold her gaze. She knew she should walk away, protect her heart from whatever danger lay ahead, but the thrill of the unknown pulled her in like quicksand. "I don't think I can afford to be reckless," she replied, half-heartedly attempting to dismiss the growing connection. Yet deep down, her curiosity was piqued. The chaotic world of the mafia wrapped around him like a cloak, and she could feel herself drawn closer, wanting to understand the man behind the reputation. Luca stepped back slightly, his expression thoughtful, as if weighing the consequences of his next words. "Sometimes, Clara, it's not a matter of affording it, but rather embracing the chaos that life throws at us. You seem like someone who understands that better than most." Clara's heart skipped a beat at the mention of her name, How did he know her? The thought sparked a mixture of fear and excitement within her. She needed to know more about him, about the life he led, and about what fate held in store for someone like her. "What if I told you I'm not interested in chaos?" Clara offered, the defiance in her tone masking the flicker of intrigue in her belly. "Ah, but that stubbornness tells me otherwise." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice, making her heart race. "Tell me, what would it take to convince you to stay?" As the music swelled and laughter echoed around them, Clara found herself at a crossroads of uncertainty. Part of her wanted to retreat into the safety of her ordinary life, free from the allure of danger. But the other part, the one that craved adventure, was tempted to explore the enigmatic world that Luca represented. Unsure of her next move, Clara took a breath, ready to answer his challenge. She sensed that this night was about to change everything. Whatever happened next, she knew she would never be the same. In that moment, the dangerous dance between them began, a magnetic pull that would lead her down an unpredictable path, one that she never anticipated, where the line between danger and desire blurred into an intoxicating haze. And as the night unfolded, leaving the gala behind them was the last thing on her mind. The question lingered in the air. Could she afford to indulge in the chaos he promised, or would it consume her entirely? Whatever the answer, one thing was clear. Her life would never be ordinary again. Clara felt an invisible pull toward Luca, an unexplainable connection that made her heart race with excitement and trepidation. She had always been cautious, preferring to keep her distance from anything that resembled chaos or danger. Yet, here she was, standing in the midst of a world she barely understood, captivated by a man whose very existence seemed to challenge the boundaries she had always set for herself. "Tell me," he continued, his voice low and inviting, "what brings someone like you to a place like this?" Clara hesitated, caught off guard by the intensity of his gaze. "I'm here to network," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "To meet people in the art world." Her heart raced as she wondered if he would mock her aspirations or show some measure of respect. "Art?" Luca leaned in slightly, a spark of genuine interest flickering in his eyes. "A passion worth pursuing. I admire someone who chases their dreams." His unexpected compliment disarmed her, and Clara felt a warmth spread through her. "Thank you, but most people here wouldn't care about that. They're too busy chasing money and power." Luca chuckled softly, the sound rich and deep. "Ah, but money and power can be art in their own right, can they not?" His smile was enigmatic, hinting at layers of meaning she couldn't quite grasp. "But tell me, do you really want to cross paths with men who wield such power? It can be intoxicating, but it also comes at a cost." The air around them seemed to thicken with tension as Clara grappled with his words. "I'm not looking for intoxication," she replied, her tone firmer than she felt. "I just want to create and find my place in the world." "Often the two are intertwined," he said, his expression shifting to something more serious. "Creation isn't always safe, Clara. Sometimes it demands a sacrifice." The weight of his statement hung in the air, and Clara felt her pulse quicken. Was he speaking metaphorically, or did it extend to the darker corners of his life? The allure of his world was undeniable, but she was all too aware of the shadows lurking within. Just then, a group of men approached, their laughter booming, shattering the moment between Clara and Luca. Clara instinctively stepped back, but Luca held his ground, his presence still commanding. He turned his attention to the newcomers, and Clara took the opportunity to observe him in a different light. There was a shift in his demeanor. He became more guarded, the playful charm replaced by a steely focus. "Luca, my friend," one of the men boomed, clapping him on the back. "We didn't expect to see you here. You know these events are beneath you." The others laughed, their expressions a mix of admiration and mockery. "It seems I have a taste for the unexpected," Luca replied smoothly, his eyes momentarily flickering back to Clara, as if inviting her to share in the joke. Clara felt a rush of adrenaline as she realized the men were discussing business matters, their words laced with a familiarity that hinted at a deeper connection. Luca was a titan in this world, and she was a mere outsider. But even as she started to retreat into the background, she found herself unable to look away, mesmerized by the interplay of power and camaraderie among them. "Tell me, what do you think of the new shipment?" one of the men inquired, his tone shifting to something more serious. "Profitable, if we play it right," Luca replied, his voice steady and confident. "But we must tread carefully. There are eyes everywhere." A chill ran down Clara's spine as she absorbed the implications of his words. She had heard whispers about the mafia's dealings, the shadows that danced just beneath the surface of their glamorous lives. For a brief moment, she felt out of her depth, an unwelcome guest in a world that thrived on secrets and danger. As the men continued their conversation, Clara's mind raced. She couldn't help but wonder what it meant for her to be drawn to someone like Luca. Could she really allow herself to become involved in such a tumultuous existence? She was an artist, not a thrill seeker. When the group finally moved on, leaving Clara standing there, she felt as if she had been given a glimpse into a hidden reality. Luca's reputation preceded him, and now she understood the complexities that came with his powerful status. He was not just a man, he was a force that could either uplift or destroy. "Are you all right?" Luca's voice broke through her thoughts, revealing a concern that surprised her. "You seem lost in thought." Clara met his gaze, her heart racing anew. "It's just a lot to take in. I didn't realize the extent of your influence." "Influence can be a double-edged sword," he replied, his expression shifting to one of vulnerability. "There are burdens that come with it, Clara. You think you want to know this world, but it can consume you." His honesty tugged at her heartstrings, and Clara felt an unexpected surge of empathy. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm not afraid of challenges. I've faced my share." "Perhaps," he mused, his eyes studying her intently. "But the stakes here are higher than you might imagine." Clara took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She was at a crossroads, her heart caught between the allure of Luca's world and the safety of her own. "Maybe I'm curious about what lies beyond those stakes," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Luca's gaze softened, and for an instant, the tension between them shifted. She saw something in his eyes, a flicker of hope, or perhaps a hint of longing. "Curiosity can be a dangerous thing, especially in my line of work. Are you truly prepared for the consequences?" Clara felt a thrill course through her veins, a mixture of fear and excitement. "I don't know," she confessed, "but I want to find out." His expression darkened for a moment, and Clara realized just how serious he was. "Be careful what you wish for, Clara. You may find it's not just your heart at risk." The weight of his words settled in her chest as she grappled with her burgeoning feelings for him. Would pursuing the connection she felt with Luca lead her into a world filled with peril? Or would it unlock a passion she had never dared to explore? As the evening wore on, Clara felt a battle within her, a struggle between the safety of the life she knew and the magnetic pull of the unknown. She had walked into the gala seeking opportunity, but now she found herself standing on the precipice of something far more significant than a mere career move. "Let's take a walk," Luca suggested, breaking the silence that had enveloped them. "I can show you the city through my eyes." The invitation hung in the air, promising a night that could change everything. Clara took a deep breath, her heart racing as she considered her next move. Would she step into the shadows with him, embracing the danger, or would she retreat back to the safety of her ordinary life? With a mix of anticipation and trepidation, Clara took a step closer to Luca, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Clara felt the atmosphere shift as the laughter from Luca's companions faded into the background. The air, once charged with intrigue, now crackled with an unforeseen tension. She sensed it before she saw it, the subtle movement of bodies, the uneasy glances exchanged among the men. It was as if the world around her had shifted from a lively gala to a precarious battlefield in mere moments. "Stay close to me," Luca murmured, his voice low and commanding. Clara nodded instinctively, feeling a rush of adrenaline course through her veins. The playful charm he wore moments ago was replaced by a steely focus, a protective instinct emanating from him that sent a thrill through her. As the group of men continued their conversation, an unfamiliar figure caught Clara's eye. A tall man with a chiseled jaw, dressed in a dark suit, moved purposefully through the crowd. His eyes scanned the room, a predator seeking its prey. Clara's breath hitched in her throat as she caught Luca's gaze darting to the man, a flicker of recognition crossing his features. "Who is that?" Clara whispered, her heart racing. Luca's jaw tightened slightly. "Just someone who shouldn't be here," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. There was something in his tone that hinted at danger, a warning that sent a chill down her spine. The man paused, his eyes locking onto Clara, lingering for a moment longer than felt comfortable. She instinctively stepped back, seeking refuge beside Luca, who remained tense, his body a barrier between her and the threat looming in the room. "Whatever happens, don't leave my side," he instructed, his tone leaving no room for argument. Clara felt the weight of his words, the gravity of the situation settling over them like a dark cloud. Just then, the atmosphere shifted again. The laughter and chatter in the room quieted, as if everyone sensed the tension. "Luca," the voice boomed, echoing through the hall. The tall man had closed the distance, a predatory smile stretching across his face. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight. You know these gatherings are meant for those who can actually handle the spotlight." Luca's expression hardened, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the palpable hostility in the air. "And yet, here I am," he replied coolly. Clara could feel the electricity between them, the unspoken challenge that hung in the air. "What's this?" the tall man asked, his gaze shifting to Clara. "A new toy, Luca? You've always had a taste for the delicate." Clara's cheeks flushed at the implication, but she held her ground, refusing to show any sign of vulnerability. Luca's hand instinctively found hers, a possessive grip that sent shivers down her spine. "Careful with your words, Marco," Luca warned, his voice low and dangerous. "You wouldn't want to make an enemy of me tonight." The tension escalated, Clara's pulse quickening as she absorbed the situation. This wasn't just a party. It was a battlefield where words were weapons, and she was caught in the crossfire. She felt a surge of courage, a desire to step into the fray, to assert her presence in a world that had always felt so foreign to her. Before she could think twice, Clara spoke up, her voice steady, despite the chaos swirling around them. "I'm not a toy, and I certainly don't belong to anyone." Both men turned to her, surprise flickering across Marco's face. Luca's grip on her hand tightened, but the corners of his mouth lifted in a barely concealed smirk. "It seems she has a spirit of her own," he said, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Spirit doesn't mean strength, darling," Marco snapped back, his gaze darkening. "You're in a world you don't understand. You'd do well to remember that." Clara felt a surge of defiance. "And you do well to show some respect. Just because I'm not from your world doesn't mean I'm powerless." Luca's expression shifted, a mix of admiration and surprise etched across his features. There was something about Clara's fierce defiance that fueled his own resolve. "You heard the lady," he said, his voice steady. "Show some respect, or I'll be forced to remind you of your place." Marco's smile faded, replaced by an icy glare. The tension was palpable, the threat hanging in the air like a storm cloud. "You think you can protect her?" he sneered, taking a step closer. "You're playing a dangerous game, Luca," just as the words hung in the air. A sudden commotion erupted outside the grand hall. The sound of shattering glass and raised voices filtered in, causing heads to turn and panic to ripple through the crowd. Clara's heart raced as she clutched Luca's hand tighter, her instincts screaming that this was more than just a party gone wrong. "Stay behind me," Luca instructed, his voice firm as he moved forward, instinctively shielding Clara from the chaos. The room erupted into chaos as guests scrambled for exits, the atmosphere shifting from elegant to frantic in mere moments. Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she followed Luca, her pulse racing with fear and exhilaration. The adrenaline coursed through her, igniting a fire within her she had never known before. As they navigated through the panicked crowd, Clara realized she was no longer just an observer. She was an active participant in this world of danger and intrigue. The realization sent a thrill through her, even as she recognized the fear that settled in her gut. "Luca, what's happening?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Someone's trying to make a statement," he replied, his expression grim. "We need to get out of here." The urgency in his voice pushed Clara to act. She felt her heart race, not just with fear, but with a newfound determination. She was no longer the timid artist at a gala. She was part of something much larger, something that demanded her courage. With every step they took, Clara felt the bond between them strengthen. Luca's protective instincts clashed with her desire to stand alongside him, to face whatever danger lurked in the shadows. The thrill of the unknown exhilarated her, and the tension of the moment ignited an undeniable chemistry that simmered just beneath the surface. As they rounded a corner, Clara spotted an exit, the emergency lights casting an eerie glow. "There!" she shouted, pointing towards the door. Luca nodded, urgency in his stride, as they made their way. But just as they reached the exit, a figure emerged from the darkness, blocking their path. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the man, Marco. "Going somewhere?" he taunted, his eyes narrowing as he stepped forward, intent on confronting Luca once more. "Get out of our way," Luca said, his tone icy, the protectiveness radiating from him palpable. "Not a chance." "You think you can just waltz out of here with her? You're in over your head, Luca. This is my territory." Clara felt a surge of defiance again as she stepped forward, standing beside Luca. "I choose where I want to be," she declared, her heart racing with a mix of fear and empowerment. Luca glanced at her, surprise etched on his face. "Clara, no," she interrupted, her voice firm. "I'm not going anywhere without you." The tension escalated as Marco's eyes flickered between them, a mix of incredulity and anger. "You don't know who you're dealing with, girl. This isn't a game." "Maybe you should take that advice," Clara replied, her voice steady, "because I'm not afraid of you." In that moment, Clara felt the weight of her own courage, the realization that she had stepped into Luca's world and found a strength she never knew she possessed. As the standoff hung in the air, she could sense the shift in Luca, the way he regarded her with newfound respect. "Let's go," he said, his voice low and resolute. With a sudden motion, Luca pushed past Marco, forcing him aside as they raced toward the exit. Clara followed closely, her heart pounding with exhilaration and fear. The connection between them had deepened, the danger of the moment forging an unbreakable bond as they stepped into the unknown together. As they burst through the door into the night, Clara felt the cool air hit her skin, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. She glanced back at the towering building, the shadows that once felt alluring now filled with uncertainty. Luca's presence beside her felt like a lifeline, a promise of protection amid the swirling darkness. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face as he took in her wide eyes. "I am now," she breathed, a smile breaking through despite the shock of the evening. "Good," he replied, his gaze intense, "because this is only the beginning." Clara felt a rush of anticipation mixed with fear. She had crossed a threshold into a world she never expected to inhabit, and now there was no turning back. The danger was real, but so was the connection she felt with Luca. She was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, even if it meant facing the darkness together. Clara's heartbeat echoed in her ears as the tension between Luca and Marco simmered, palpable and thick. The air felt charged, as if the very walls of the lavish venue were holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. She could sense Luca's protective aura, a fierce resolve radiating from him that sent an exhilarating shiver down her spine. Yet beneath that steely exterior, she sensed a flicker of something deeper, an emotion that she couldn't quite place. As Marco leaned in closer, his smile shifting to something more sinister, Clara felt the need to push back against the suffocating tension. "Why don't we make this interesting?" she said, surprising even herself. The words left her lips before she could second-guess them. A duel of words, perhaps? Let's see who can walk away unscathed from this little tête-à-tête. Luca's eyes widened slightly, a mix of admiration and disbelief in their depths. Marco's eyebrows shot up, momentarily taken aback. "You think you can challenge me?" he asked, his voice dripping with mockery. "Why not? I'm already here, aren't I?" Clara replied defiantly, her pulse racing with the thrill of the unexpected. She felt Luca's hand tighten around hers, a silent communication of both caution and support. Before Marco could respond, Luca stepped forward, placing himself protectively in front of Clara. "Enough games, Marco. This isn't the time or place for your theatrics." His voice was calm but edged with an intensity that sent a ripple of unease through the crowd. "And yet here we are," Marco replied, smirking. His gaze flicked back to Clara, and for a moment she felt as if she had become the object of a hunt. "You're brave, or foolish. Either way, you're caught in a world you can't begin to comprehend." "Maybe," Clara said, her voice steady, "but I'm not afraid." There was a weight to her words, a challenge that hung between them like a thread ready to snap. Marco's smile faltered, and for a fleeting moment she saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Let's not keep the party waiting," Marco said, his tone shifting as he turned away from them. "But remember, Luca, this isn't over." With that, he swaggered back into the crowd, leaving a palpable tension in his wake. Clara let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The thrumming excitement in her chest battled with an undercurrent of fear. "What just happened?" she asked, seeking reassurance from Luca. He turned to her, his expression unreadable for a moment. "Thank you for standing up for yourself," he said, his voice softening. "But it's dangerous to provoke him. Marco is not just a rival, he's a threat." "I could sense that," Clara replied, her heart still racing. "But I needed him to understand that I'm not a pawn in this game." Luca's gaze bore into hers, and for the first time, Clara felt she was being let in, just a fraction deeper into the complex world he inhabited. "You have no idea what you're stepping into," he warned, but there was an unusual tenderness in his tone. "And I want to protect you from it." "Protect me?" Clara echoed, feeling a mix of warmth and frustration. "Is that all you see me as? A damsel in distress?" "No, Clara. You're so much more than that," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "But my world," he hesitated, searching for the right words. "My world is filled with shadows, and I refuse to let anyone I care about get caught in them." The sincerity in his gaze caused a stir within her. Suddenly, all the bravado she had felt moments ago began to crumble under the weight of his vulnerability. "What happened to you, Luca?" Clara asked softly, the question hanging heavily in the air. He looked away, the mask slipping just a fraction as he wrestled with some unseen burden. "It's not something I talk about," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper, as if the past had the power to reshape the present. "But I want to understand," Clara pressed, feeling a desperate need to bridge the chasm between them. "I don't want to just be here in your world. I want to know you." A flicker of surprise crossed his features, but it was quickly replaced by a guarded sadness. "You don't understand the darkness that follows me," he murmured. "I was once like you, naive and unprepared for the truths of this life." "What truths?" Clara prodded gently. He took a deep breath, as if summoning the courage to share a fragment of his past. "When I was younger, I lost someone I loved because of this life," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "It was a betrayal from within my own family. I was forced to make choices that haunted me, choices that turned me into the man I am today." Clara felt her heart ache at the pain etched in his expression. "That must have been devastating," she said softly, wishing she could reach out and ease his burden. "It was," he replied, his gaze drifting away as if lost in the memories. "It taught me that vulnerability is a weakness in my world. So I built walls, Clara. Walls to keep people out. But with you, it's different." Her breath caught in her throat, the weight of his confession wrapping around her heart like a vice. "What do you mean?" I can't help but feel drawn to you, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But it terrifies me, because the last thing I want is for you to suffer because of me. Clara's mind raced, the implications of his words crashing over her like a tidal wave. She never expected this man, this powerful, enigmatic figure, to reveal such vulnerability. It ignited a spark of empathy within her, complicating her feelings in ways she hadn't anticipated. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. You're not just a mafia boss, Luca, she said firmly, her voice steady and resolute. You're a man with a past, and I want to understand that man, not just the mask you wear. Luca looked down at her, his expression a mix of admiration and apprehension. Clara. Before he could finish, the atmosphere shifted again, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses returning as if nothing had happened. But for Clara, everything had changed. The barriers between them had begun to crumble, and the shadows of Luca's past cast a new light on their connection. As she stood there, a fierce determination blossomed within her. She would not be a mere observer in this world anymore. She would fight for her place beside him, for the man he was beneath the hardened exterior, because deep down, she knew that in the tangled web of power and danger, love was the only thing worth fighting for. Whatever happens next, I'm with you, Clara declared, her voice unwavering. Luca's eyes flickered with surprise and admiration, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a glimmer of hope ignited within him. Then let's face it together, he replied, the weight of his past beginning to lift just a little as the future stretched before them, uncertain yet filled with possibility. Clara's resolve wavered as Luca's eyes searched hers, a storm of emotions swirling between them. The tension from the confrontation with Marco still hung in the air, and the shadows of the gala seemed to grow darker. Clara had challenged Marco, and though the moment felt exhilarating, she recognized the impending danger that lurked beneath the surface. Before she could voice her thoughts, a sudden commotion erupted near the entrance. A group of men dressed in sharp suits that mirrored the opulence of the venue burst through the doors, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The laughter faded, replaced by hushed whispers. Clara's instinct screamed that something was amiss. Luca's body stiffened, and in an instant, he was scanning the crowd, his protective instincts on high alert. Stay here, he commanded, his tone brooking no argument. She watched as he moved through the throng with purpose, his presence a beacon of strength. Clara felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on her shoulders. She had taken a stand, but now the stakes were rising higher than she had anticipated. The newcomers were clearly not there for the charity gala. Their demeanor exuded an air of menace that set Clara's heart racing. The tension escalated, and she could feel the pulse of danger vibrating in her bones. Suddenly, a voice cut through the murmurs, a familiar voice. Luca! Marco's tone was mocking, laced with a sinister undertone. It seems you've invited some unwanted guests. Clara's stomach dropped as she realized the implications of Marco's words. The men who had just entered were not just party crashers. They were rivals, enemies in the complex hierarchy of the mafia world that Luca navigated. She watched as Luca's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing in focus. The protective aura he exuded moments before now transformed into a force of raw determination. Get Clara out of here, Luca said to one of his men, his voice firm yet urgent. Clara's heart raced at the command. No, I can't leave you, she protested, stepping forward, her voice rising above the chaos. She was done being a mere bystander in this dangerous game. Luca turned to her, his expression softening for just a moment. You need to trust me. This isn't your fight. I won't let you face this alone, Clara replied, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. Luca's gaze bore into hers, searching for understanding, but she could see the flicker of frustration in his eyes. The truth was, she was no longer willing to be an outsider. The fire that had ignited within her during her confrontation with Marco had grown, and now it fueled her resolve. Clara, please, he replied, but before he could say more, the rival group advanced, their leader stepping forward, a tall man with a cold smile and eyes that reflected a world of menace. "Luca, how quaint to see you here playing the gallant hero," he sneered, his voice dripping with derision. "Have you come to collect your debts, or are you simply here to entertain me?" The crowd fell silent, eyes darting between the two men. Clara felt the weight of their scrutiny, the tension in the room thickening like fog. She stood beside Luca, feeling a sense of unity in their shared purpose. "Enough!" Luca growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You know nothing of what I owe, or what I am capable of." The rival leader laughed, a sharp, cold sound that sent shivers down Clara's spine. "Your bravado is amusing, Luca, but let's not forget. Loyalties can shift, and alliances can break." He gestured behind him, revealing the men who flanked him. Each one appeared ready for confrontation. Clara's heart raced as she realized that this was more than just a verbal sparring match. The stakes had escalated, and the danger was no longer theoretical. Luca stepped closer to her, creating a barrier between her and the threat, his body tense with unyielding determination. She could feel the energy radiating from him, a blend of protectiveness and urgency. "I won't let them take you from me," he whispered fiercely, his eyes locked onto hers. Clara felt a surge of emotion at his words, a powerful mixture of fear and affection. She understood the weight of his promise, but she also recognized that she had to fight for her place beside him. In that moment, Clara made a decision. "Then let's show them what we're made of," she said, her voice filled with newfound strength. The words surprised even her, but she was done being passive. She had come too far to retreat now. Luca's gaze softened, a flicker of admiration shining through the storm of chaos. Before he could respond, the rival leader stepped closer, a predatory grin spreading across his face. "What's this? Are you both ready to dance with danger?" he taunted. Clara felt Luca's muscles tense beside her, and she could see the battle within him, his instinct to protect her clashing with the need to confront their enemies head-on. "Yes," she declared, her voice unwavering. "We are." The defiance in her words hung in the air, electrifying the atmosphere further. She felt a shift, an energy as the crowd around them began to murmur, the tension palpable. Clara's heart raced as she glanced at Luca, who regarded her with a mix of pride and disbelief. "Very well," the rival leader replied, amusement dancing in his eyes. "Let's see if you can back up those words. But remember, Clara, this world is unforgiving." With a nod, something within Clara shifted. She felt empowered, no longer just an observer in a world cloaked in shadows. She was standing beside Luca, ready to face whatever came next. The confrontation was imminent, and in that moment, she understood that there was no turning back. Whatever the outcome, she had chosen her side. The tension snapped as the rival group advanced, and Clara felt a surge of adrenaline. She and Luca were united, two souls entwined in a battle against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. This was their moment. And together, they would confront the challenges ahead, determined to forge their own path in a world that sought to divide them. As the first blow was thrown, Clara's resolve crystallized. She was no longer just Clara. She was a force to be reckoned with, standing alongside the man who had captured her heart. The stakes were higher than ever, but she was ready to fight for not just her place in his world, but for the future they could build together, no matter the risks that lay ahead. Clara's breath hitched as Luca positioned himself closer, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. The rival leader's cold smile mirrored the hostility radiating from the group behind him, and Clara felt a surge of determination coursing through her veins. She had come too far to back down now, to be swept away into the shadows of Luca's world. The stakes were higher than ever, and she knew she had to stand firm beside him. "Luca, we can't let them dictate this moment," Clara said, her voice steady yet threaded with urgency. She could feel the weight of every gaze in the room upon them, but she refused to let fear paralyze her. Luca turned slightly, his eyes locking onto hers, and for a brief moment the chaos around them faded. "You're right," he replied, voice low but fierce. "But we need to be smart about this." His gaze flickered back to the rival leader, who was still smirking as if he were watching a show unfold. "What do you want, Marco?" "Ah, straight to the point, are we?" Marco's laughter echoed, a cruel sound that sent shivers down Clara's spine. I came here to collect what's owed. You've buried your head in the sand for too long, Luca. The city is changing, and so are the players. Clara felt Luca's muscles tense beside her, the protective aura returning with a vengeance. I owe you nothing, he growled, his fury barely contained. I'll not be threatened in my own territory. Your territory? Marco raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. You really think this is just about territory? It's about respect, power, and your little redhead here is a perfect bargaining chip. The way he said it ignited a fire within Clara. She would not allow herself to be used as leverage in this twisted game. Enough. Clara stepped forward, surprising both men. You think you can intimidate us? I'm not some pawn in this game. The room went silent, and she could feel Luca's surprise mingling with pride. Marco's expression shifted, irritation flashing in his eyes. Bold words from a woman who doesn't understand the world she's stepped into. Perhaps, Clara shot back, but I understand loyalty and love. You're only showing your weakness by hiding behind threats. Luca's heart raced, not just from the danger they faced, but from Clara's fierce spirit. He had never seen her like this, standing tall, unflinching in the face of danger. It made him realize how much he had underestimated her strength. Marco laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. Love? What a quaint notion. In this world, love gets you killed, darling. His gaze flicked to Luca, venomous. You should know that better than anyone. Look where your loyalty has brought you. A beautiful woman caught in the crossfire. Luca stepped forward, rage boiling within him. If you think I will let you take her away from me, you're gravely mistaken. As the tension escalated, a voice rang out in the crowd. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Marco. A tall woman stepped through the throng, her presence commanding and fierce. Clara recognized her as Livia, a well-respected figure within the mafia, someone who had once been an ally of Luca's family. Livia, Luca breathed, surprise mingled with relief flooding his chest. What are you doing here? I came to see how the gala was going, Livia said, her gaze sharp as she assessed the scene. But it seems you found yourself in a bit of trouble. Trouble? Marco scoffed. I'm merely reminding Luca of his debts. Livia stepped closer, her eyes narrowing at Marco. You've overstayed your welcome, Marco. You know the rules of engagement in this city. Clara felt the shift in the atmosphere. Livia's presence was a game changer, and she sensed the balance of power start to tilt. Rules? Marco scoffed. You think I care about rules? I'll do what I must to collect what's mine. The atmosphere crackled with tension, and Clara felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She had never imagined being at the center of such a confrontation, yet here she was, standing beside the man she had come to love, ready to fight for their future. Enough of this, Livia declared, her voice slicing through the tension like a knife. If you want to threaten anyone, you'll have to go through me first. Clara's heart soared at Livia's words, feeling a newfound sense of solidarity. The stakes were high, but they were not alone. Very well, Marco said, his expression calculating. If it's a fight you want, I'll oblige. But I'll make it clear, this isn't over. He signaled to his men and they began to move, the tension palpable as the situation threatened to spiral out of control. Luca, we need to get out of here, Clara urged, adrenaline coursing through her veins. No, Luca replied, his voice firm, not without making a stand. As the rival men moved closer, Clara felt the fierce determination ignite within her. She wasn't going to let Luca face this alone. We fight together, she said resolutely, locking eyes with him. With a deep breath, Luca nodded, the resolve in his gaze matching hers. Together. Clara felt a surge of courage as they prepared to face the impending confrontation. This was not just about survival. It was about love, loyalty, and redefining their relationship in a world that sought to tear them apart. As the rival group closed in, Clara and Luca stood united, ready to confront the shadows of their realities and emerge into the light of their shared future. The outcome of this confrontation would not only affect their lives, but would ultimately become the foundation upon which they would build their love. a love forged in the fires of adversity, stronger than any threat they faced. "Whatever happens, I'm with you," Clara whispered, her voice steady as they braced themselves for the storm ahead. "Always," Luca replied, his gaze unwavering, and as the first move was made, the world around them faded into the background. Here, in this moment, it was just Clara and Luca against the world. Clara stood her ground, the tension in the room palpable as the confrontation escalated. Marco's smirk faded, replaced by a simmering anger. Livia's presence had shifted the odds, but Clara could feel the uncertainty hanging in the air like a storm cloud. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what you want?" Livia's voice was steely, cutting through the tension. "This is Luca's territory, and I won't allow you to threaten him or anyone he cares about." Luca's heart swelled with admiration for Clara. She was no longer the hesitant woman he had first encountered. She was fierce, standing tall beside him, unyielding even in the face of danger. Marco's eyes flickered between Livia and Luca, calculating his next move. "You're all fools if you think you can stop me," he spat. "But I'll play your little game. Let's see how far your loyalty stretches." Clara felt the weight of his words, but she refused to let fear take hold. "Loyalty goes both ways, Marco. You may think you can intimidate us, but we stand united." Luca turned to Clara, realizing just how much she had grown in strength since their first encounter. "Together," he affirmed, his voice low but filled with conviction. "Enough," Marco shouted, his frustration boiling over. "I'll give you one last chance, Luca. Step aside, or I'll make sure you regret it." The room held its breath, the silence deafening. Clara could sense the tension crackling like electricity, and she took a step closer to Luca, intertwining her fingers with his. "We won't back down," she declared. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the gala, and the crowd gasped as a group of men stormed in, their faces masked and intentions clear. Clara's heart raced as she realized they were here for Marco. Luca's protective instincts kicked in, and he moved in front of Clara, shielding her from the chaos. "Get down," he commanded, his tone brooking no argument. Livia wasted no time, her fierce demeanor shifting into action as she confronted the intruders. "You'll regret this," one of them shouted, but Livia was already on the move, her agility surprising everyone as she took down one of the attackers with a swift kick. The atmosphere shifted from tense standoff to chaotic battle, and Clara felt her pulse quicken. In the midst of the chaos, Clara spotted Marco slipping away, his expression a mix of rage and defeat. "Luca," she shouted, but he was already aware, his eyes narrowing as he pursued Marco through the throng of bodies. "Stay with Livia," he called back, but Clara's instincts urged her to follow. As she maneuvered through the crowd, Clara's heart raced with fear and adrenaline. She spotted Luca confronting Marco in a dimly lit corner of the venue, their voices rising above the chaos. "You don't know when to quit, do you?" Luca growled, advancing on Marco, who was backed against a wall. "This ends tonight." Clara watched, torn between wanting to help and needing to trust Luca's strength. Suddenly, Marco lunged at Luca, and Clara's instincts kicked in. "Luca!" she shouted, rushing forward. But before she could reach him, Livia appeared, swiftly intercepting Marco and tackling him to the ground. The sound of fists meeting flesh echoed through the space, and Clara felt a surge of pride for the woman who had fought alongside them. "Get him out of here," Livia yelled, her voice fierce as she pinned Marco down. "I'll handle this." Luca turned, his eyes meeting Clara's, a silent communication passing between them. She nodded, understanding the urgency. They needed to leave before the chaos escalated further. Together, they backed away from the scene, making their way toward the exit. Clara's heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of the encounter, but from the realization of what had just occurred. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Clara turned to Luca, breathless. "Are you okay?" she asked, her concern genuine. "I am now," he replied, his voice low, filled with an emotion that made her heart flutter. "You were incredible back there." Clara felt a warmth spread through her. "I couldn't just stand by and watch. We're in this together." Luca's gaze softened as he took her hands in his, the weight of the evening settling around them. I know I've been distant, trying to protect you from my world, but I realize now that I can't do this without you. Clara's breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? I want to build a future with you, Clara. I've been so focused on the dangers around us that I forgot to see the strength right in front of me. His voice trembled slightly, revealing a vulnerability that tugged at her heart. I promise to protect you, to stand by you, no matter what this life throws at us. Tears pricked at Clara's eyes as she squeezed his hands. And I promise to stand by you too. I may not know everything about your world, but I'm willing to learn, to fight alongside you. Luca stepped closer, their foreheads almost touching, the intensity of the moment wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Together then, he whispered, his breath warm against her skin. Clara nodded, feeling the weight of his words resonate deep within her. Together. As they stood there, the sounds of the gala faded into the background, leaving only the two of them in this moment of clarity and commitment. Clara's heart swelled with hope, knowing that their future, although fraught with challenges, was now intertwined. Let's get out of here, Luca said, breaking the silence as he led her away from the chaos of the gala. I want to take you somewhere special. Clara smiled, her heart fluttering with anticipation. I'd like that. As they walked into the night, hand in hand, Clara felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had embraced her strength, accepted her place in Luca's world, and together they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape, and for the first time, Clara felt ready to embrace it all.